Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her.
Combs' federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
He used to be called a mogul, a kingmaker, the ultimate success story in hip-hop. But that all changed yesterday. Cassie Ventura took the witness stand and dropped shocking claims that left even seasoned reporters speechless.
She walked in there, Rachel. She had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. He said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate, what is a freak-off?
Diddy's polished, powerful image started to crack as Cassie shared one disturbing detail after another. The man who once ruled the music industry like a boss sat there pale and silent as she told her story, holding nothing back. Diddy wasn't just a star, he built an empire. He launched Bad Boy Records, turned unknown artists into household names, and expanded into fashion, vodka, and media. On paper, he was unstoppable. The perfect example of turning hip-hop into a business empire. But Cassie's words are rewriting that image, showing a much darker side behind the success. If even part of what she's saying is true, it could change everything we thought we knew about him.
The freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
While Diddy was on magazine covers and red carpets, Cassie says she was living a completely different reality. The mood in the courtroom turned cold when she started speaking. Picture this. The man always dressed to impress, always in control, suddenly being exposed by someone who knew him behind closed doors. The person she described didn't match the public image at all. It sounded like a completely different man. On the second day in court, Diddy walked in like he always does. Sharp suit, confident stride, high-powered lawyers at his side, even smiling. But once Cassie started talking, everything changed. Witnesses say his whole demeanor shifted. The confidence disappeared. That cool, in-control persona, gone. Within minutes, he looked visibly shaken. And she wasn't even finished. His lawyers were already trying to stop her from saying more, clearly knowing the impact it could have.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
At some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse.
Imagine this. The same man who once called the shots in music, business, and media, now sitting in court, restless and clearly shaken. Witnesses said Diddy couldn't sit still. The power dynamic had completely flipped. As Cassie took the stand, everyone's eyes were on him. His face reportedly went pale, almost like the color drained out. He kept adjusting his tie, fiddling with his cufflinks, and eventually just sat there, wringing his hands. One reporter said he started scribbling notes at lightning speed and urgently passing them to his lawyers. It got so intense, one of his attorneys had to raise a hand just to get him to slow down.
In addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said,
A courtroom reporter described it as watching someone realize, for the first time, that they'd completely lost control of their own story. Another witness said Diddy looked physically ill, while Cassie calmly continued speaking. She wasn't shouting or emotional. She just laid everything out, clear and steady, and somehow that made it hit even harder.
I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better, but she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it."
Person in the room said they saw Diddy close his eyes multiple times, like he couldn't bring himself to look at her or listen to what she was saying. And this was just the beginning. As the afternoon went on, it became clear why he was falling apart. Cassie was about to make claims that could shake the entire music industry. For a man used to crafting his own narrative, producing, spinning, and staying in control.
And she said, "Oh no, well, it's not that." But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, "He would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down." She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently.
When Cassie finally took the stand, the courtroom went completely silent. You could hear people breathing. Everyone had been waiting for this moment, but when it came, even Diddy's top legal team seemed unprepared for what she was about to say. After years of staying quiet, Cassie was finally ready to speak.
It eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen.
She didn't start with anger or big accusations. Instead, she began at the beginning, calm and steady, and that made it all hit even harder. Cassie told the court how she met Diddy when she was just 19. He was already rich, famous, and well-connected. She was a young model trying to break into music. From the start, the power difference was clear, and according to her, he used that to his advantage. Her story unfolded slowly. At first, she said, it was little things, constant check-ins, needing to know where she was all the time, even showing up when she was out with friends. Then came the control over her career. She testified that he threatened to block her music, ruin collaborations with other artists, anything to keep her in line.
In prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about.
Bit by bit, she said, her independence disappeared. Then came the moment that stunned the room. Cassie testified that Diddy allegedly installed tracking software on her phone. She claimed he always knew where she was, calling her minutes after she arrived anywhere. She said he slowly isolated her from everyone, friends, music partners, even longtime supporters, until he was the only one left in her life. The courtroom was tense. The judge had to stop the proceedings 3 times just to keep order.
Was this her choice, or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's...
Meanwhile, Diddy was visibly reacting, shaking his head, whispering to his lawyers, making faces the jury could clearly see. Every time the judge warned him, he'd sit quietly for a few minutes, then start again. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Cassie pulled out her phone and handed it to her lawyer. Suddenly, text messages and emails were up on the big screen, proof from years ago. Messages where Diddy allegedly apologized for violence. Others where he reportedly threatened her career if she ever spoke out. These weren't vague or confusing. They were clear, direct, and went completely against the image Diddy's team had been presenting. But that was just the beginning. Cassie's testimony was about to get even darker.
When she got emotional, when she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
She started sharing details of physical abuse that she said happened over the years. The room went still. She described being thrown against walls during arguments. Then came a claim that shocked everyone. Cassie said Diddy once pushed her down a staircase at a rental home in Miami, and there was more. She testified that he had choked her several times, so hard that she nearly blacked out, only stopping when she went limp.
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people.
People in the room were visibly shaken. One older woman on the jury was seen wiping away tears. A male juror couldn't even look at Diddy. Even veteran reporters, people used to covering intense stories, admitted they weren't ready for how raw and graphic her testimony was. And then came what Cassie called the night that changed everything. I thought I was going to die that night, she said, so softly the room had to lean in to hear. She was talking about an incident at the Four Seasons Hotel, something no one had ever heard before. Not the media, not the blogs, not even Die Hard. Fans. Cassie said she never spoke up because she was scared. Scared for her life, her career, and that no one would believe her against someone so powerful. But now, she was done staying silent.
That Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail. This was not coercion. This was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together.
According to Cassie, it all started after what should have been just another industry after-party. She told the court that Diddy snapped when he saw her talking with another music executive. His smile vanished. She said he grabbed her arm so hard it left marks, and while keeping up appearances for the crowd, he whispered threats in her ear. Then came a moment that had the whole courtroom holding its breath. Cassie testified that he dragged her across the hotel lobby toward the elevators. She said she was crying, trying to pull away, and causing enough of a scene that hotel security stepped in. But when the guard saw it was Diddy, all he asked was, "Is everything okay?" Cassie said Diddy answered yes. And just like that, the guard walked away. "He didn't even ask me if I was okay," Cassie told the court. Then, her lawyers showed the proof, photos Cassie had taken the next morning, bruises on her arms, a split lip, red marks on her neck. These weren't polished or staged. They were raw, shaky pictures taken in a bathroom mirror. Cassie said she took them because she knew one day she might need proof. She was scared no one would believe her unless they saw it for themselves.
That's something I think the defense is going to focus on. And had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is...
Diddy's legal team scrambled to keep those photos out. They argued the pictures weren't verified, that they could have come from another time, that it was too late to introduce them. But the judge shut it all down. Every objection was overruled. And just like that, the photos were up on screen for the entire courtroom. The reaction was immediate. One female juror covered her mouth in shock. Two male jurors turned their heads, unable to look. Another juror, sitting in the back, was seen scribbling in her notebook, her hand visibly shaking. The energy in the room shifted. This hotel incident wasn't in any earlier filings or statements. No one saw it coming. Diddy's lawyers clearly hadn't either. Their panic was visible. Then Cassie dropped another bombshell. She said Diddy threw a champagne bottle at her. It missed her by inches and shattered against the wall. She said he went into a rage, trashed the room, flipped a table, smashed a lamp, punched a hole through the bathroom door. And then the darkest part, she claimed he held her there for over 48 hours, took her phone, told her there'd be consequences if she called for help. When she finished, everyone in that courtroom turned to look at Diddy. People wanted to see his face, how he'd respond, what would happen next.
Questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? They said,
that moment, Cassie on the stand, the photos on the screen, the weight of her words, might go down as the image that defines not just this trial, but Diddy's entire legacy. The man who built a career on control and coolness came undone in front of everyone. The polished media mogul mask cracked wide open, and what showed underneath wasn't calm, it was chaos. Cassie's testimony hit him hard, one gut punch after another. Reporters who had covered countless high-profile cases said they'd never seen anything like it. Diddy, who entered the courtroom like a giant, was now hunched in his chair, shrinking. His legal team was in constant damage control. One lawyer was seen reaching out to calm him with a hand on the arm. Another passed a note that reportedly read in bold caps, "Stay calm." But it didn't help. Things boiled over when Cassie brought up an alleged incident at Diddy's house in the Hamptons. Diddy slammed his hand on the table, hard. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The judge didn't hesitate. She stopped the proceedings and warned him clearly, "Mr. Combs, if you cannot control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom." For a moment, it looked like he might actually be thrown out of his own trial. Throughout her testimony, Diddy couldn't stop reacting, shaking his head, mouthing, "That's not true," over and over. But he seemed to forget. The jury was watching everything. As one courtroom insider put it, it looked like a man who had never been called out before, suddenly realizing he had no control over the room. Think about that. Years of allegedly controlling every part of Cassie's life. And now, she had the mic. He couldn't mute her. He couldn't call security. He couldn't release a statement to spin it. He had to sit there and listen. And then came the final blow in that moment. Cassie claimed Diddy had warned her. If she ever spoke out, he'd come for her family.
She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that.
And then boom, Cassie dropped another bomb. Her lawyer said they had recordings, real audio. Diddy's voice making the threats she'd described. And when the tape played, Diddy lost it completely. He jumped out of his chair, pointed straight at Cassie, and shouted, "You know that's not how it happened." His own lawyers had to physically grab him and force him back into his seat. The courtroom was stunned. It wasn't just a meltdown. It was a full public unraveling. It took 3 of his attorneys to hold him down as he kept trying to yell over the recording. The judge had no choice but to call a recess, but the damage was already done. Everybody saw it. The jury, the press, the staff, every single person in that room witnessed the meltdown of a man once thought untouchable. As Diddy was escorted out, he didn't look anything like the polished mogul who had walked in that morning. That cool, confident mask was gone. What was underneath wasn't. The image he built, it was a man completely unglued. But just when people thought the worst was over, Cassie dropped yet another bomb. This one hit harder than anything before. She had more evidence. Not just the photos or messages everyone already knew about. This was next level, the kind of thing no one saw coming. Not the judge, not the jury, and especially not Diddy. For years, Cassie had been collecting receipts, carefully and secretly storing them in places Diddy couldn't touch. Emails, texts, photos, backed up in multiple locations. Then she revealed the part that froze the courtroom. She had messages from celebrities, big names, who had allegedly witnessed Diddy's behavior firsthand. Not strangers. These were people in his inner circle, friends, collaborators, people who toured with him, partied with him, built empires beside him. They'd seen things the public never did, and when Cassie named them, Diddy's face reportedly went ghost white. Someone in the gallery said he looked like he was about to throw up. His lawyers jumped up, objecting loudly, demanding a sidebar. They argued the texts were hearsay, improperly submitted, tried every legal trick they could think of. But the judge wasn't buying it. She reviewed the messages privately and came back with a ruling that crushed Diddy's defense. Every objection overruled. She called the messages highly relevant and admitted them into evidence.
Was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control.
It hit Diddy like a punch. He dropped his head into his hands. He knew what was coming. One by one, those celebrity messages appeared on the courtroom screen. A major rapper texted Cassie after a Grammy after-party, "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can. Stay at my place if you need to." A famous female pop star messaged, "I've known him 15 years. I've never seen him act like that with anyone else. This isn't normal. Please call me." But the most damning message came from a longtime producer who had worked with Diddy for decades. He texted Cassie after witnessing something in the studio. "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." These weren't just sympathetic outsiders. These were people who knew Diddy intimately. and they were concerned, terrified even. Their messages shattered the public image he'd worked so hard to protect. The story Diddy's team had tried to sell, that no one had seen anything, that Cassie was exaggerating, fell apart completely. But it got worse. Because next came Diddy's own messages. Screenshots showed him texting Cassie things like, "I'm sorry about last night, you know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again." Another said, "Whatever you need to make this right. Just name it. New car, new apartment, whatever you want." And then came the messages that sounded like hush money. "My lawyer can draw up the paperwork tomorrow. 2 million, clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years."
So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down on that court.
As those messages were read aloud in court, the silence was deafening. Everyone was locked in. No one moved. And Diddy, he looked like a man watching everything he'd built come crashing down around him. Then something surreal happened in the gallery. People who had come in with him that morning, his entourage, the loyal crew who had sat behind him in full support, started quietly slipping out. One by one, no words, no scene. They just dipped out, unable to sit through another second as the avalanche of evidence rolled on. By the time Cassie finished that part of her testimony, Diddy was practically alone at his table. Just him and his legal team. No backup, no presence. The wall of strength he'd flexed earlier was gone. Completely. That courtroom had flipped upside down. The surprise recordings, the texts, the photos. Cassie had brought more than just a story. She brought receipts that rewrote the narrative. In real time. This wasn't just a woman telling her side anymore. It was a reckoning. The calm way she delivered every piece of evidence, the way others had reached out to help her, documented the abuse, witnessed the violence. It painted a picture that isn't going away anytime soon. At this point, the question isn't whether Diddy can win the case. It's whether his reputation, his empire, his legacy can survive what just happened in that courtroom. If this hit you like it hit the rest of us, stay tuned. There's more coming. This might be the beginning of the end.